Okay, perfect. So good morning again. We are beginning, we started last week, chapter 42 of Tanya, and I understand that everyone has the book. So just listen in as we go on. I'm going to quickly bring us up to where we're holding today. So last week, interestingly, in the beginning of chapter 42, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya starts a new kind of diverts a little bit of a different topic, because in the earlier chapters we discussed that how important it is to always remember consciously that we are in the presence of Hashem, and whatever we do, like on Shabbos we discussed that the Jew has a mission, to do the mitzvot. We have so many different commandments that we have to do. And in addition to the commandments, not only like a commandment to keep Shabbos or lay tefillin or give tzedakah, whatever we do, like we learned Tanya, 24/7, we have to always be conscious that our life should be fulfilled with purpose and meaning, understanding where we are, and that my eating and sleeping and work should be with the right intention, that it's not for my own selfish desires, but it's here to serve Hashem, to make the world a better place, and that's how we elevate our status, elevate our being, to make this world a better place. So how do we do that? So conscious remembering that Hashem is always watching us, Hashem is always present, that Hashem desires a personal relationship with each of us, and that my performance of a mitzvah, and even if I don't do it properly and I fall, Hashem is always here to welcome us back, and that invokes in me a certain reverence, standing in Hashem's presence. We started last week, regarding a verse. The Tanya quotes from the Talmud. The Talmud quotes a verse that Hashem asked from the Jewish people. Exactly. So Hashem asked the Jewish people the verse, if you look back on page 523, the verse it's from Deuteronomy, Va'ata, which means now, Yisrael, Jewish people, Ma Hashem Elikecha, what does Hashem want of you? And Hashem says, Hashem asked, Ki'im ligira es Hashem Elikecha. The only thing Hashem is asking is to revere Hashem, to have reverence.
Я на классе. Так 100 человек тебя видит.
So the question then is reverence of Hashem such an easy task? It makes it sound in Torah the way Hashem is saying that the only thing I'm asking of the Jewish people is standing reverence in front of me. And we said, is that a small task? Only meaning simple, like it's a simple task just to stand in reverence constantly in the knowing that Hashem is around you. And the Talmud answers that Hashem was talking to Moshe. Hashem wasn't talking necessarily to every Jew. Hashem is talking regarding Moshe. That by Moshe, our teacher, the Moshe Rabbeinu, for him, reverence of God is a natural thing. It's not a big deal. That's how the Talmud explains the verse about where Hashem is asking we should all what is Hashem asking? That we should stand in fear and reverence of God. And we said, well, that doesn't sound like an easy task. And the Talmud answers that the Torah is referring to Moshe, not to every Jew. Well, it doesn't say not to every Jew. It says referring to Moshe. So then in Tanya asks, it doesn't answer the question, because the verse says Va'atu Yisrael, talks about the Jewish people. Now, Jewish people, what is it that Hashem is asking of you? And you answer me, he's not talking about the Jewish people, he's talking about Moshe. So from here, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya says, obviously, there's something else. What is the explanation? He brings down from the Zohar. He's talking to every Jew. He's not talking to Moshe. He's talking to every Jew. However, in every Jew, every Jewish soul, every neshama, possesses a spark of the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moshe, our leader, our teacher. That's a revolutionary idea that's based in Zohar, that we each have a spark of Moshe within us. What does that mean? We each have a spark within us, and what does Moshe represent? Anyways, Moshe lived 3,000 years ago. So we're saying Moshe's spark is within us. So let's understand first, and Tanya, what is the definition, or who is Moshe, or what does Moshe represent? So we know that in the Torah, when we talk about biblical figures, we make a big deal about our biblical figures, right? Starting from Adam to Noah, to Abraham, to Sarah, to Yitzchak and Rivka. And every time we learn about and we read the stories like we had last week in the Parsha about Yaakov, we try to discuss the stories in details, and kind of somebody can ask, who cares about a story that happened 3,000 years ago? Like, what's relevant to us? And then we continue in this week's Parsha with the birth of Joseph and Benjamin, the death of Rachel, and then it goes into the sale of Joseph. The brothers sold him, and how he ends up in Egypt, and then there's a famine, and how the Jewish people end up in Egypt for 200 years, and then there is the story of the plagues and the labor and the harsh labor of the Egyptians. We come to story. Then comes the birth of Moshe. Moshe comes to the scene in the book of Exodus, and all of a sudden becomes the main character of the Torah. Correct? From the book of Exodus to the end, it's all Moshe. He takes 80% of space, and the Torah ends with his death. And Moshe is the central figure. From all the people of all the biblical personalities, we call Moshe, we give him a title as what? As Moshe Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu means what? Teacher. Moshe, our teacher. When we talk about Avraham, we call him Avram Avinu. Avinu means our father. Av is father, Avinu, our father. Sarah, Imenu. Imenu comes from the word of Ima, mother. Imenu, the grammar nu is us, our mother. And so it goes with Yitzchak and Rivka. And when it comes to Moshe, we don't call him Moshe Avinu. He's not our father, because not everybody is a descendant of Moshe. We all Jews are descendant of Abraham, correct? Even a convert is a descendant of Abraham. We call a convert, when we give a convert a name, what do we say? Let's say if somebody converts and goes to the mikvah, and then we give him a name, and let's say the name is Yitzchak, we name him Yitzchak or Leah, and then we say Ben or Bat, son of Abraham, son of Sarah. Some people even would like to be called Ben Avraham Avinu. So they know it's not just an Abraham, but I am a direct child of Avraham Avinu. Some people rather not be called this way. Then everybody knows we're talking about a convert. But regardless, Moshe got the title of Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu means what? The teacher. So what did Moshe do to deserve this title? So obviously, if we look, Moshe was the one that brought the Torah down. Moshe is the one that taught us the Torah. That's beautiful. Okay, so but he's not the only one. After Moshe, Yeshua and Shmuel, Hanavi, and King David, and Rabbi Akiva, they also taught Torah. So we don't call Rabbi Akiva Rabbeinu. We call him Rabbi, but not Rabbeinu. Rabbeinu means our teacher. When I say our teacher, and this is so beautiful, we're not referring as a teacher to the Jewish people back then. We're saying our teacher in present terms. Moshe is still our teacher. That's the beauty about Torah and about our entire heritage, that we are not learning or living something of the past, but we have adopted the past to make it something that's in the present. And that's why these personalities are all alive. Abraham is still very much alive, because his present and his message and his inspiration continues to live on, not just something as a memory, but his soul is actively present in such a way that he's literally alive. Matter of fact, when it comes to Yaakov, talking about Yaakov, Jacob, our forefather, the Talmud makes a very radical statement. Talmud says in the Tractate of Tanis, Yaakov Avinu lo metz. Yaakov, our father, did not die. Lo met, he did not die. So the debate is in the Talmud, what do you mean he didn't die? We read in the Torah, he passed away. He was buried. So the Talmud says, Ma zavoi b'chayim, afu b'chayim. Just like his offsprings are alive, so he too is alive. What does that mean? Didn't answer the question. That means his offsprings are alive, not him. But it says Yaakov never died. Lo met. Doesn't say Yaakov's legacy is still alive. Lo met means he did not die. Physically, did not die. So obviously, as it's explained, that his neshama, what is the life of a tzaddik? What is the life of a tzaddik? His body or his soul?
Soul.
Soul. So, and by the way, for most people, we can identify that what makes a person present and alive are not the physical attributes, but the spiritual part that exists within every human being. In other words, what do you like about a loved one? What's the connection, that strong connection you have with a loved one? It's their love, it's their guidance, it's their inspiration, it's their friendship. These are things that you can't touch. In other words, if the person is physically alive, but they cannot communicate. They cannot communicate. Imagine a person can never communicate, God forbid. Right? They can never communicate love. They can never communicate anything. They're just let's say just a body with no soul. That's not the person. It is just the body is housing the person, but that's not the person. What is the person? It's the soul within the person. So that soul. So the challenge is that we are made out both. We still need a physical body to talk, to express, to hug, right? We never want a person to die, because when the person dies, all that goes away. But when the person was alive, that essence of the person that I felt so connected to wasn't something just physical, was something much more, much deeper than just something physical. That's the soul aspect in every human being. So then most of us, we are much more physical than spiritual. Our life is defined much more by physical than the spiritual. Even if we know that the neshama is primary, but we are physical beings. So a person that passes away, there's a big hole. The person is no longer here. Yeah, his legacy, his ideas continue to live on. But I want the person. I want the person talking to me, embracing me, loving me. You know, I miss that person. It's painful. When we talk about a tzaddik, which is, we know in Tanya is very unique and very rare, to have a physical being that has no evil inclination, that their entire life, 24/7, is what? Is holiness. They never sinned. It seems almost, right, superhuman. Tzaddik, by the Tanya, is somebody who's superhuman. It's not a regular human being. So what defined them? I would say that 99% defined them was their soul, not their body. The bodily experience didn't matter to their existence. So when the physical body is no longer here, not much of their presence was taken away. Not much of their definition was taken away. So it's hard for us, because we don't live that reality, it's hard for us to relate to that. But we can understand that when a tzaddik passes away, lo met means that their true essence really didn't die. Their entire being and existence cannot die because it's eternal. Because the neshama, which define them almost 100%, continues to live on, has not been dependent on their physical presence. So it's more than just their memory is still here. The legacy is still here. It is that their presence is still around. And very much they're still alive. So we're talking about Elijah the prophet, right? Coming to the Seder, coming to the bris. That's real. Why? Why? Because think about it. What is a prophet? What is an angel? An angel really is not a physical being. And prophet
Elijah
also.
never died. He never died.
Elijah never died.
He went to heaven in the body.
Exactly, but so what does that mean? That means that he was being, when he was on this physical earth, he was a spiritual being in the first place. How does a body go up to heaven, walk up to heaven? It's more metaphorical that even with him being in this world, he wasn't really in the body. The body was just a facade. So when that is no longer here, it's very much here, and he can be anywhere. It can be in every Seder, it can be at the bris. So when you think about Elijah the prophet coming to the Seder by the bris, you don't think about his legacy, his memory, like we refer to most people, like our loved ones. When we talk about loved ones, right? The neshama continues to live on. We're thinking more of a memory. The neshama is up in Gan Eden and it's present spiritually, but physically we say Kaddish and we bury the person and we earn pain. When it comes to life of a tzaddik, their present is much more real, and in other words, palpable, real, and has a real effect to their loved ones and to their connections that they have through their lifetime when they were really present in the body, and continues to have a connection present because their life never ends. That is the revolutionary idea about Moshe. We say Moshe Rabbeinu, as this is all explained in the Zohar on the very Kabbalistic level. I try to give it to you in the easy format, and so to speak, because we can go now and dissect it into the Kabbalistic DNA, which also makes a lot of sense, which we'll touch upon a bit. What does it all have to do practically? Practically, what the Zohar is saying, this is all explaining, this is all in Torah, because now the verse makes more sense. When Hashem is saying, for Moshe, standing in awe and reverence of Hashem is no big deal, Hashem is actually talking to every Jew. Because two things. Number one, as we're going to explain more, we each possess a tiny bit, a spark of Moshe's soul. And B, Moshe is still here with us. Moshe is still here with us. And what does it mean is with us? What was Moshe's job? Rabbeinu was a teacher. So we're going to explain, what does the teacher mean? So last week we touched about the concept of das. The Hebrew word of das means what? We translate das as
knowledge.
Knowledge. So we know that we have in the when it comes to the intellect, we have three levels of intellect: Chachma, Bina, Das. Chachma is wisdom, translate wisdom, like a chacham. Bina is understanding, and Das is knowledge. In every idea that I try to come up with and try to understand, I need to go, ideally to develop a full idea, I need to go through these three-step process. First, I have the idea, which is Chachma, the big idea, right? I want to build a house. Then Bina is to take apart the idea and to delve into the details. Now I want to understand. So I have a picture. I want to build a house. So you have in your mind a vision of a house, but you don't know yet the details. So now you're going to take it and break it down to details: how many doors, how many windows, which color, etc. But it's still all in your mind. That's level 2. Understand. I have an understanding. That's called bina. I understand what the idea is. The third part is called the neck. Actually, it's called das, which is knowledge, meaning it's connecting to the idea. Connecting to the idea means that I connect it to so much that it becomes part of me. And when I connect to an idea, what happens? I get emotionally attached to it. Now I'm excited about the idea. Now I'm afraid of the idea. Whatever it is, it's touching me. It's connecting to me. So in Tanya, he uses the word das. In Kabbalah, in Torah, we have the word das right at the beginning of the Torah. It's actually interesting because where do we find the word das? We have the first shidduch. Who's the first shidduch in Torah? Who's the first marriage in Torah? Anybody?
Eve.
Huh?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. So you look in Genesis and Bereshit, right? That there it says that Adam Yoda is Chava. And Adam Yoda is the word das. Yoda, which we translate got to know, knowledge. Adam Yoda is Chava, and Adam got to know Chava, and they had children. So Yoda really they were intimate. So people say, okay, the Torah doesn't want to use the word intimate, so it uses a nicer language, right? Yoda. But Tanya explains that Yoda is connected to intimacy because Yoda is the power of knowledge where you become familiarized with each other. Yoda means that I become familiar with the idea, that I connect to the idea. It means connecting. So in marriage, that means to be intimate. That means you know each other so deeply. Like somebody said, the play word, intimacy is a play word of into me you see. Into me you see. You know each other so deeply that you can connect. Not just a physical thing, but also in our minds, in our hearts. That's how that's the lesson Torah's teaching how marriage ought to be, how intimacy is supposed to be. That's going to be deep and going to be real. But moving away from that, just an example, when we say about das, so das is connecting to idea that you're familiar with the idea. What does it mean familiar with idea? So it's not an academic experience. I can learn something as an academic experience, and it has nothing to do with me. I can learn about, people in how people live in Guatemala. So I learned all about it. I know everything. I studied in university for 2 years, but I'm not connected to it. Nothing to do with me. That's not Moshe teaching Torah. That's not how we learn Torah. Moshe teaching Torah is Yoda in a way that it becomes part of me, that I become familiar with it. When I say familiar, and I like that word, being familiar means, I know my way around. I feel I'm part of this. Like mishpacha or a connection. You feel a connection to Israel, for example, right? You each feel a connection to Israel. Let me ask you, it's a good example. Does your connection that you feel, you have a certain feeling towards Israel, right? You could be in love with Israel, you could be critical of Israel, you could, whatever it is, but you feel as a Jew there's a certain connection to a homeland. Does that come by teaching or by your pure essence of being a Jew?
It's the essence of being a Jew.
Say essence of being Jew. Only? I said, Bella, you said both.
I said both. But knowledge brings that essence.
Oh,
I think.
exactly. Exactly. Liba, you said right. By the essence, the fact that I'm a Jew, I'm already connected to Israel. Right? But if nobody's going to teach me about it, nobody's going to learn, explain it to me, nobody's going to expose that I do have a connection, what my connection is, then I can live my whole life and have absolutely no feeling for Israel. Even if I hear the word Israel in the news, it means nothing to me. And sadly, more and more Jews don't care about Israel. Why? Because they were never given the opportunity to learn about Israel. They were maybe given opportunities to dislike Israel. But they're never given an explanation why do we Jews have an inherent connection to our homeland. And when you learn about it, and it's properly taught, then the das becomes real. Then the knowledge connects. I'm familiar with this, it's mine. I'm not learning about Guatemala. If I learn about Guatemala, I have no connection. I'm not going to make me exciting. So this is what this is all coming in this chapter. By definition, our neshama, we have a love and a fear and an awe and a connection to Hashem. You can't run away from that. This is the faith that's within every Jew. It says Yisrael, maminim b'nei maminim. We are believers, children of believers. I mean, we are born with a belief and faith in Hashem. It's in our DNA. However, Hashem understood that that in itself is not enough. That in itself doesn't mean that's activated. So Hashem gave us a gift, and He gave us a figure called Moshe. Moshe is not a physical body. Moshe is a holy soul, the neshama, that comes from the highest level in Kabbalistic hierarchy that we're learning, from the level of Atzilus, as we're going to see soon. So it's a pure neshama that has no dilution. Most of our souls have been gone through so many different levels that we were filtered down, that our sense of connecting and faith and inspiration has been tainted or concealed, that we need to work a lot to get to our true essence. Moshe is pure. Why did Hashem give into the world? Because his job is to be a teacher, to give us the das, to give us that type of knowledge, to connect our faith that we have within us, that it should be familiar, it should be real. And that's not going back to the verse, but Hashem says, what am I asking the Jewish people? That they should fear me, they should revere me. Really, that's a big task. You make it sound so simple. It is simple for Moshe. It is simple, meaning it's accessible to you because each of you are really Moshe within you. You all have Moshe inside of you. I've given you Moshe to each of you for generations. That's why also we said last week, because we asked, there are 7 shepherds. We talked about it in Zohar. He calls Moshe a faithful shepherd. Right? Raya Mehemet. What is a shepherd? A shepherd tends to its flock and gives what the flock needs. A real shepherd doesn't give the same amount of food to all of his animals. He knows which animal needs what. That's a real shepherd. Otherwise, it's just a stupid shepherd, or somebody who doesn't care about the animals is going to die. Moshe was given the job to be a faithful shepherd. And we said, we find in different sources that there were more than one shepherd in our history. There were 7 shepherds. Who were the 7 shepherds? We know them from the Ushpizim, from the visitors we have on Sukkot. Every day of Sukkot, we have a different visitor. Who are they? They're Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, by the way, with the spouses, and Moshe, Aaron, David, and Shlomo. But we say that from all those 7, Moshe was definitely the chief shepherd that we're focusing most, because he really, all the others really also had Moshe within them. So their greatness, even though some of them were before, this in souls, there's no time limit. There's no before and after. In other words, that's a beauty. My soul and your soul was not born in 1992. When you guys born? 1992. The 90s. Everyone is in the 90s, right? I'm from the 80s. Your soul always existed. Your soul always existed. Moshe's Rabbeinu's soul always existed. Why? Because we learned in chapter 2. What is the soul? The soul is an actual chelik elokam imal mamish. It's an actual part of Hashem Himself. And just like Hashem is eternal, our soul was eternal. Lots of stuff. So let's jump back in what we're holding here in the book. I want to start again from page 525. In the middle. And it says like this: why is Moshe able to nourish our souls with all the emotional attributes in contrast to the other shepherds who are limited to a particular attribute? Tanya explains, and that's because Moshe causes das flow to all the souls of Israel. As we learn, the transition from thinking to feeling takes place via the agency of das recognition, a process in which ideas become personally relevant. So by nourishing our das, Moshe's soul influences the entire range of our emotions, enabling us to worship Hashem. This enables each individual to have das of God. But the extent to which you succeed in acquiring das depends on 3 factors. A, it will be according to your soul's own cognitive abilities. And B, it depends on your soul's root above. And C, it also depends on the level from which your soul can draw energy from the root of Moshe's soul. I want to repeat that. This is a very fascinating idea. That just
Can we go into details?
Yes.
Which
How
level?
do we derive? How do we each derive the most? How do we derive das, recognition of God? How do I derive the ideas, the knowledge that I need to nurture my faith in Hashem? So he says it depends on 3 factors. Number one, your own soul's cognitive power. So everybody's born with a different soul. Yes, in essence, we all belong to one soul, but each of us are a individual soul that branches off of the one soul that we all interconnected with. In other words, the neshama is a part of Hashem, but each of us have our own individual neshama part that makes us unique. And that neshama that was given to us at birth comes with its own emotional and cognitive abilities. So a fact that some people are smarter or have more ability to comprehend something than others is due to their source of the soul. Now, just want to clarify, as Einstein says, right, that we only use 5% of our brains, correct? We only use about 5% of our potential that we have within us. The soul comes with a certain potential or cognitive potential that allows us our ability to study and to learn and to understand things. So some people are given greater ability, some people are given less. Doesn't mean they're not. Doesn't mean they're different in that they're not as good. my tools that were given to me at birth through my soul is that I can achieve that much understanding versus somebody else who has a much better head and they can do much more. And their calling is obviously more than my calling. Or not more, but my calling is in this category and their calling is in their category. So when it comes to understanding God's knowledge and God's ideas that we talk about here, everyone has their capacity, what they are called for. So if it's somebody who, I want to give example, right? But obviously my capacity is not the same capacity than somebody of a stature like Rabbi Akiva, right? Rabbi Akiva has a much higher stature, way higher, infinitely higher. But that's number one. So depending on my cognitive capacity that was given at birth. B, it depends on the soul's root above. So what that means, just like a tree has the roots, the stem, and then there's all those branches. The further the branch it is, the less connected it is to the stem, and maybe the less active presence of the, if we talk about the soul, being that our soul has to go through so many levels, as I just explained a few minutes ago, it gets filtered down to have the capacity to comprehend certain things. And C, so just want to clarify that. Remember in chapter 2, it says, it's a little off track, but I'm going to touch upon this because it's a fascinating topic. Remember chapter 2 talks about the branching of all the souls. Do you remember that?
Long time ago.
It's a long time ago, right? Well, how many years ago? If you go back to chapter 2, it says something interesting. It says that the souls, how everyone's soul ends up being, is kind of a mystery. Meaning, trying to give an example or an illustration. Let's this is such not a good illustration, but let's do it just anyways, okay? Let's pop in. Let's take a high riser. Take a high riser. Okay, picture a 20-story high rise. And imagine that the top level is you shine a light on the top level, a very strong light, and then that light extends to the level below that and continues to go from one level to the next level. And as it goes lower the levels, the light will be weaker. Correct? The lowest level is where the body is. The highest level is where the soul begins to travel. In order for the soul to come into the body, it has to go through the entire building. Otherwise, the soul might be too powerful for a body to enter a body. So the process is called, in Kabbalah, called Seder Hishtalshelus, which means it's a chain effect that conceals or obstructs the intensity of the soul as it is in its source, in order to be able to coexist in a physical body, where the physical body is not, this is not where the soul feels at home. Right? That's why it says that Hashem forces a soul to come down into a body. The soul does not want to come into a body. The soul is having a really good time up there on the penthouse in Gan Eden. It is basking in the light of Hashem. Doesn't want to come down to the basement. Hashem says, but I force you. Why? Because you have a mission. So the soul is born. Then the soul has to figure it out, its new station, a new destination called body, and live for 120 years. But it understands that there's a purpose. What's the purpose? The purpose is that within the body, the soul should be experienced and serve Hashem, not where it's easy in Gan Eden, but in this physical body, in this physical world, to make this world a place like Gan Eden. That's called Tikkun Olam, to fix the world, to make this world a place like God's home. And via that process, the soul experiences a greater elevation, a greater intensity of Hashem's light than before it came down to the world. Otherwise, what's the point? It's called in the language in Tanya, Yerida L'Tzarech Aliyah. It is a descent of the soul for the purpose of an ascent. It's a descent for the purpose that the soul can later on ascend to greater heights. Those greater heights happen not just when this person passes away. What happens? We take the elevator back up, right? Sounds very crass, but the person passes away, the soul now goes back to heaven, goes back to Gan Eden. And the soul is judged. We look at the soul. What have you fulfilled your purpose and mission? Depending on what you have done, is which floor you get into the high rise in Gan Eden. And that's why we do a mitzvah for a neshama even after they pass away, because through my mitzvah, I can elevate the soul. It's all about elevating. Yiskadal ve'yiskadash. The Kaddish is to make great Hashem's name. We try to elevate the soul via our saying a prayer, doing a mitzvah, or yisker, we give tzedakah. That helps the soul to elevate to a higher level. That it can no longer do while it's alive. I'm starting to like my analogy. I don't know if it makes sense. This just popped up. That work, that high riser, the soul's high riser. Huh? Okay, it's going to be trademarked right here.
You can publish it.
It kind of gives us a good picture. So why? That's now after death, and that I wasn't going there. Here's really the interesting part. Typically, with most times, a soul goes through when it comes down to the world, it has to go through every floor to the light should become enough limited or filtered that it can enter the body. However, Hashem has at times given a gift that he took the soul straight from the penthouse called Atzilus and jumped out of the building and went straight into our body.
Tzaddik.
Tzaddik. Or, not necessarily tzaddik, sometimes we go to the 17th floor, and from the 17th floor we come into a body. And that person will become much more spiritual, has much more spiritual energies than a regular person. It's a gift. In chapter 2, he said something really radical. I'm going to mention it because you got it. It says, in quotes from the Zohar, that the soul's journey from top to bottom, how it enters the body, is very much connected by the moment that father and mother are intimately together. When father and mother, as the baby is being conceived, by them coming together, that has a lot to do with how the soul comes to the world. We know that that's considered a very holy experience. That's when the beauty of mikvah comes in. But it's not only dependent on that, because we have a lot of people that might have been very spiritual at the moment they went to mikvah, and the souls that came to the world were not good souls, were not special holy souls. He says that person should always be careful. And we talked to a married couple when they want to conceive a child, that they should take it, should know that it's very detrimental to the soul that they're bringing down. That's to encourage mikvah, encourage that they should be done in a way that is befitting for a couple to do so. And if you want to read more about it, read about the laws of family purity, which is very, very interesting.
And what? Say it again.
See the connection of a physical act to a spiritual outcome. Think about bris, right? A bris. What is a bris? Hashem did the covenant of the Jewish people in a place where it all begins. Because Hashem said, this is the most physical organ in our bodies is actually the most spiritual. For more on this another time. This is not the topic today. But I just want to give you a glimpse, because that now explains what he said here. Some souls are of higher status than others. We don't know. And that's why some people can be more spiritual or have more das than others, because their souls maybe went from the 16th floor down into our body. We don't know. Nobody knows. You don't know. We don't know.
So Einstein told only 5% we use our brains. What about our soul? Did anybody measure that?
I would say halavai, we use 5% of our souls.
Oh, you see, so I guess tzaddik used.
Who says Rabbi Schmerling? Einstein says brain, Schmerling says the soul. That's number 2. And by the way, that's again chapter 2. One more thing. He said that even two wicked people, parents who are not appropriate, can sometimes have a soul of a tzaddik. Not because they were together in a holy fashion. Sometimes, as I said, it's a mystery. Sometimes Hashem decides the soul has to come through these people. And we know in our history, we had some very holy souls that came from very bad parents, like Abraham, right? Or some sages in the Talmud, their parents were not proper. I can't hold myself back in. But what is a convert? A convert is, again, we said earlier, right? Child of Abraham, but the parents are not Jewish. So how do you call them a child of Abraham? No, the child of Peter. Well, Peter was the blessing to bring the soul of Abraham to the world, even before they were converted. It says regarding a convert in Torah, it says, always refers to a convert. It says in Hebrew, ger shenitgayer, a convert that converts. That's not the proper expression. It should say a Gentile that converts, not a convert that converts. The Talmud explains that their soul was already destined to become a Jew. So it's a convert that actually converts. All right. The third part here is what? And C, and this is another critical part in which I believe is something that we can actually enhance in a much easier way than the other two parts. Meaning, I have a certain, my maximum capacity to understand is what my soul was given to, right? So for me to study the high end of Kabbalah, that's not me. So one of the Tanya. In fact, what type of soul I got as a gift, I don't know, and that's not in my hands. My parents or Hashem decided this. My soul went from the 16th or from the first floor. I don't know, and it's not in my control. The third one is in my control. What's the third one? And he said again, the C depends on the level from which your soul can draw energy from the root of Moshe's soul. which means I have the ability to get nourishment from Moshe's soul. How so? By learning Torah, by learning Moshe's Torah. The more I learn, the more nourishment I receive. By connecting to the soul of Moshe, I get more nourishment. Look over here. Let's continue. Obviously, the das of Moshe's soul doesn't replace the das of your soul. Is merely enhancing whatever is there already. So even with this assistance, you're still limited by your soul's powers. But in terms of nurture, how well your soul has matured intellectually, and nature, your soul's spiritual root and its level of access to Moshe's soul. But what gives Moshe's soul the ability to nourish your das? What is his special power? Moshe's soul being rooted in supernal das ha'elyon, so that's what it is. Let's continue then on page 526. So far in Tanya, we have learned that das acts as an intermediary between the intellect and the emotions. Das internalizes your thoughts so they become personally relevant, and that generates feeling. The process follows a strict hierarchy. Your innermost will and desire, Kesser, informs your intuition, Chachma, which then analyzes by cognition, Bina, and made personally relevant by Das, leading to emotions. There's however a second pathway for which Das can receive from Kesser directly, enabling you to feel the super-rational desires of your soul without any substantive intellectual pondering first. This direct passage from Kesser to Das is referred to as accessing the supernal Das. And we're going to read a bit and then I'll explain it. Accessing supernal das doesn't mean you completely bypass your intellect. It's just that your chachma and bina quickly align with the preconceived conclusion of your das, which is received from Kesser. It's as if your emotions are flowing directly from Kesser. They just pass through chachma and bina on the journey to your heart. Supernal das then has the power to bypass hierarchies in the metaphysical realm. In this case, it short circuits Kesser to Das, effectively bypassing Chachma and Bina. As we shall see, since Moshe's soul is rooted in supernal Das, Moshe has the power to short circuit connections between higher states of mind and the souls of Israel. So just going back to the analogy, just like Moshe bypassed from the penthouse, from the highest level, into a body, and connecting to the other analogy that I gave you about Israel, right? We all have a certain feeling, connectedness, and familiarity to Israel. It's ours, our homeland. But you know that it has to be triggered how? By learning and reading and studying about it. But when you learn about it, it's not like you'll learn the first time about it. Correct? When you learn about Israel, and you say, wow, what a great country. It's almost like a memory that you've forgotten and somebody reminded you about something, right? What's the difference? If I tell you something about a certain mountain, I teach you all about a Swiss mountain that you had never seen, never been there, say, very nice. I can even show you a picture. It's very, very nice. But if you've been to Switzerland, my home country, right? You went to the Alps, you went to Davos, Zermatt once, and it's been 50 years ago. And then I come and I tell you, I grew up skiing in Zermatt in the Matterhorn, and you're like, wow, yeah, I remember 50 years ago. I was there. And I describe it to you. You get all excited because your memory is coming back. It's not that I taught you now about Zermatt. Sorry, I switched from Switzerland to Israel to Switzerland. Sorry. But it's the same concept, meaning that when we learn about the concept of godliness in Torah, it's not something new that I never knew about it. My soul is very much connected to it. So I'm not just going through the Chachma Bina, now I'm starting to learn Torah, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, I have to understand, and then I need to understand the details, and then I connect to it. We have the ability to go back to the original concept, which is even before I even learn about it, because it's part of who I am. It comes from the source of my neshama. It comes from how do I have that connection via Moshe's soul, who is always present there. And when Moshe is teaching me Torah, then I bypass, and it goes like right away back into my system as das, as something that's part of my being. So let's read a little bit further, and then we'll finish up. And he goes a little bit more Kabbalistic. Moshe's soul, rooted in supernal das, is able to shortcut the consciousness of the 10 spheres of Atzilus down into the souls of Israel below in the world. Just like Moshe went from Atzilus, which is the highest level, 10th house of spirituality, into a body, Moshe has the ability to teach us things without going through all the process of filtering it out. The reason why the physical world distracts us from an awareness of God is because we have lost the consciousness of Atzilus. In Atzilus, God is real and tangible, while the physical world is a distant dream. In this world, the opposite is true. Physical reality is obvious and real. Whereas to find God, we need to enter the imaginative space of the mind. So since Moshe's soul is rooted in supernal das, it can provide a shortcut for our souls to access a glimmer of the consciousness of Atzilus, making God's presence more real and tangible to us. While the vision may not be a clear one, it will definitely give us a boost in the daily challenge of trying to worship an invisible God in a world full of physical distractions and temptations. In Atzilus, all God's attributes are merged with an emanating source, and it is a place where He and His das are one. And He is simultaneously the power to know, the knower, and the knowledge. We learned that in chapter 2. God Himself is absolutely one, devoid of any. I'm on page 527, second paragraph. God Himself is absolutely one, devoid of any multiplicity. The created worlds, on the other hand, have the consciousness of multiplicity and separateness from God. The highest world of Atzilus, you can read it and explain it as much as I can. It represents an intermediate phase between absolute oneness, God's essence, and multiplicity created worlds. On one hand, Atzilus does exhibit some multiplicity. It has 10 different attributes of possible bina das. But on the other hand, Atzilus is a profound unity since the attributes are merged with an emanating source. So in Atzilus, there's multiplicity but without separateness. That is why the Kabbalists refer to Atzilus not as God, but godliness, because a realm of 10 attributes cannot be God because God is one. But since the attributes are merged with God without any separation, it could be called God. Rambam's statement, so God's and His das are one, captures the character of Atzilus, is the phenomenon of a distinct attribute, but it's nevertheless totally merged with God. And furthermore, we receive additional influence from Moshe's soul through another path. In English, please. Rabbi, give me this in English, please. In English is as follows. When you say Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. What are you saying? You're saying really is that what? We say that we proclaim our faith that Hashem is one. That Hashem is the only one. The true creator of all. Hashem is one. As we learned in Tanya many times, that this is not the main intention, because that's kind of obvious. I don't have to repeat twice a day that Hashem is the creator of the world. Rather, the meditation, Shema, which means to listen, meditate, is to understand that everything in this world is really one. Everything Hashem creates, and all the separateness, all the existence that we seem to, that they are independent existence are really not independent existence, and everything really stems and is one with Hashem. Because Hashem is the only true independent existence, and everything that exists is only existing because Hashem made them and keeps making them into existence. That means basically there are many, many, many billions of different pieces, but all the pieces are really one. We think there are different pieces, but in essence, they're all one Hashem. How does all these separations happen? Through the evolution of Atzilus, of the spiritual levels. From the penthouse, everything was one. Then it spread into many, many different pieces. Now, what does that have to do with me? Basically, what he's saying here is that in the level, if I had to visit Atzilus, if I had to get a visiting pass to come into the penthouse, there, if I look around, I would not have to question God's existence. There's no challenges. There's no pull to anywhere else but God, because everything is revealed, everything is open. The problem is that we don't live in the penthouse, we live on the ground floor, and we are pulled in 100 different pieces. And my body's pulling me here, and my animal soul pulls me here, and my neshama is crying, give me some food, give me some nourishment, have some faith. And my faith is challenged. I don't always have strong faith in Hashem. I don't always stand in the presence and reverence of Hashem as it ought to be. So where did I get the strength from? So it was explaining here, because you have a certain line. We all have a communication line to the penthouse, to Atzilus, via Moshe's soul. I can always draw from there. It will he calls it short circuit the entire process, and from that source is where I can gain strength day in, day out. That's when I say Shema. Think about when you say Shema in a sense, what we require you is to think and have a meditation, to think how Atzilus looks like, which is the true essence of everything. And from that point, now I can say, I love Hashem, I want to do what Hashem wants me to do. I can go into my day-to-day because I'm taking the nourishment and the strength from a place where it is always, there's no separation, there's no dichotomy, there's no chaos, there's no challenges. If I can go into that room once a day or twice a day when I pray, that gives me the strength to now throughout my day to be strong and stand in reverence of Hashem. This, my friend, was a very interesting journey that we took today. I hope you enjoyed it.
Very much.
We'll look at my time, and see you next week on Zoom again. Next week I'll be live from New York again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
All right.
for your class.
All the best.
Great.